In today's video, you're going to learn how to access properties on objects within JavaScript. We're going to go over what an object property is and the two different ways to access these properties. So using dot notation and then also using square brackets. And then alongside using square brackets, we're also going to talk about how to access a property using a dynamic variable. All right, so first off, what is an object property? Well, as you can see in my object here defined on line 6, I have these kind of key value pairs in which I have property 1, colon, and then it points to a string 1. This is the property right here, property 1, and it points to this value. And you'll often hear properties used alongside keys. So we have this kind of property value pair. Now, with this object, how do I access these different properties so I can yield these different values and actually use these values? Well, one way to do it is using dot notation. So using the label of my object here, I can just say dot and then whatever the label of the property is or the name of the property. So object.property1, that's going to return the value that property 1 holds or points to. And then object.property2, that's going to return the value that property 2 holds. So I'm assigning object.property1 to my constant 1 and object.property2 to my constant 2. And when I console log these, what you're going to see is that it returns the values of 1 and 2, the string 1 and the string 2, as those are the two values corresponding to those properties there. So the first way to access properties is using this dot notation. Now, you can also use square bracket notation. So instead of using dot and then the property name, you can use square brackets, and then with square brackets, if you use a property name, you actually need to pass in a string. So here you see I use object, and then right next to my object, I open up a pair of square brackets here. So a left square bracket and a right square bracket. And then within those square brackets, I place the string property 1. Okay. Because if I did something like property 1 here and I didn't place a string, well, what it's actually trying to do here is reference a variable called property 1, and that doesn't exist. So I need to actually pass a string. And also, one quick note is that JavaScript properties here, they're going to be coerced to strings. So even though I don't put this property in a string right here, JavaScript is going to automatically coerce this property here to a string. All right. So when I use square brackets, I need to place the property name in quotes. And if I console log these out here, what you're going to see is I get the very same result. I get 1 and 2. All right. So you can kind of use either. Now, one thing to note about using square brackets is you can actually pass any JavaScript expression into the square brackets, which this might be one of the reasons you would want to use square brackets rather than dot notation, as you can pass a JavaScript expression into the square bracket. So what do I mean by this? Well, if I comment this out and I move down here, you can see that right now I'm creating a constant called x, and within my square brackets here to access this object, I'm actually passing a ternary operator, as that's a JavaScript expression. So I can pass any expression to these square brackets. And what my ternary operator is saying is, right now I'm just using the Boolean false, and I'm saying false question mark, then return property 1, else return property 3. So right now, when this is false, this ternary operator is going to evaluate to property 3 because the ternary condition is false. So if I console log variable x here, you see I get 3 because this evaluates to property 3, so it accesses property 3 here. But if I change this to true, you can see that now I get 1 because since my condition here, my ternary is true, it's going to return property 1, which is going to access property 1 of my object. So you can pass expressions into square bracket notation. Now, you can also pass a variable into square bracket notation here. So if I remove this, you can see that I'm assigning the string property2 to some variable. And now I can pass a variable into these square brackets. And whatever this variable evaluates to, that is going to try to access whatever property it is. So I'm passing some variable in to my square brackets here. That's going to evaluate to the string property2, which is going to access this property right here. So if I console log this, I should expect it to be the value of 2. So that is how you can use dot notation, square bracket notation, different expressions within your square bracket notation, as well as variables to access properties in JavaScript.